Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to chat to you about how to instantly elevate any of your swimwear shoots. Before we get into this video, I'd love if you subscribe to my channel. If you would like to do it, please click the subscribe icon below and click the bell so you can get notifications when I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. As you guys know, I spent 3 months in Cape Town working on my swimwear book, and I found that if you're doing something for such a long time, non-stop every single day, it can become quite repetitive. I found midway through my stay that I pretty much used all the possible locations I had, all the possible beaches, and my photos were starting to look quite similar. And as you know, this is not really what you want. If you're building a portfolio, you don't want all your images to look the same. So I was just trying to figure out what to do to make them look slightly different. If I'm ever in need of inspiration, I always go onto Instagram and I check out some of my favorite swimwear photographers, and I see kind of what they're doing and how they're doing it, just to kind of get a little bit of inspiration for my own work. And I noticed that a lot of people use accessories in their shoots. So even if it's a swimwear editorial, they might use loads of accessories or some pieces of clothing. I thought it would be a great idea to accessorize my shoots a tiny bit as well, to add a bit of something to them, to not just have plain swimwear, because I find, with fashion, it's so much easier to make stuff look interesting. But with swimwear, where you only have the 2 little pieces of clothing for the models to play around with, there isn't really much room for imagination. So I thought that if I added some extra elements to the shoot, it might make it much more interesting. I always find vintage photography quite inspiring, especially some of the photographers nowadays that shoot on film in that kind of vintage style that recreates the kind of, look of the 60s and so on. I just find it really, really beautiful and really interesting to watch. I'm going to put up a screenshot of some of my favorite accounts that I follow on Instagram that have that kind of style. So I thought it would be great to bring stuff like old cameras, like water bottles, blankets, any kind of thing that we can accessorize and play around with. I asked my model to bring some sort of clothing with her, like shirts, loose skirts, anything that has a slightly vintage vibe, because I find it usually works quite nice. Of course, we started the shoot with the usual oil spray. I find it's a must in any sort of swimwear shoot. I get so many questions from you guys about it, asking for the brand and so on. So here's the actual spray bottle that I used. You can also use glycerin or any kind of oil. I know coconut oil works quite well, but I do find that the spray on oils usually transfer less to the clothing, so it's kind of a plus. It's always great to accessorize swimwear shoots with clothing, so maybe if you use a skirt like in this example and a bikini underneath, or use a shirt and just a bikini bottom, I just find it makes it much more interesting and it gives the model something to play around with. Few of my favorite swimwear accessories would be a hat, a shirt, especially if it's a stripy shirt. I find they look so good because they give you that vintage vibe. I love any type of loose skirt. I love water bottles, vintage cameras. Vintage cameras, I find they're a must, and they are a bit cliche at this point, but I just think it looks so cute in photos and it just adds something extra to the image. I always love playing with color schemes. I find whites and nudes work very, very well on the beach because of the sand color and the way they kind of work together as one. I find it was kind of nice to put a contrasting bikini on because it was really standing out and you were kind of paying the attention more to the bikini than the rest of the outfit, which is always, important, especially when you're shooting with clothing, because as much as you want to accessorize, you still need to remember that it's important to show the bikini in the best light possible. It's usually great to just ask the model to see what she has with her, if she has any of those items that you might use, anything like a vintage camera or a hat or any sort of, kind of simple styling, as I mentioned. And a lot of the time the models will have stuff like that with them. And if not, you can always go to like a local shop and just get a few bits and pieces. They are usually not too expensive and you can reuse them, and it really elevates your shoot. At the end of the day, I think it's really worth experimenting around and seeing what works and what doesn't. It's always better to bring more stuff with you and experiment around and see if you like it or not, rather than not bringing enough. I think it's really, really worth trying to bring some extra clothing and extra items to play around with, because it can really, really elevate your shoot and make it this much more interesting. So just give it a go and see what you come up with. Okay guys, that's it for today. Hope you like it. Let me know if you have any more tips about accessorizing your shoots. Let me know if you have any of your favorite accessories that you use. And if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.